Just days after the formal signing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 on July 12th, a race-driven rebellion erupted in New Jersey that lasted 6 days. Before it ended, another erupted in Harlem that lasted 4 days. Then 8 days later, an eruption took place in Rochester, New York, and it lasted 3 grueling days. Almost immediately, Rochester established a historical precedence for handling what was to become a national epidemic of racially driven riots. Hidden in its history is the fact that it was the first time that National Guardsmen were called to occupy and contain the rebellion. They came with 450 state troopers and 1,500 National Guardsmen. Almost 900 arrests were made, with nearly 250 stores destroyed, 350 injuries and 5 deaths, including 4 from an unfortunate helicopter crash.
I grew up right in the midst of the riots in 1964. I can remember, I was a little girl, and I can remember sitting on the porch with my grandmother and listening to all the noises and all the sounds and people actually yelling and screaming and vending machines flying out in the streets. And I can remember it, you know, it was very frightening for me because I was a little girl and I didn't really understand what was happening. My understanding was that it was just people thugging and acting crazy and just doing whatever for whatever reason. Since I've met Dr. Cofield and I've been working with her on the research that she's done around the Legacy 64 riots, what I found out is that there was a purpose and a cause for why people were acting that way. Part of what I understand from the research that has been done is that we have a rich history that we need to go back to and understand a little bit better so that we can move forward and pass it on as a legacy to our children.
Sociologist Fox Piven agrees. She believes that these are extraordinary moments when ordinary people rise up in anger and hope, defy the rules that ordinarily govern their lives, and by doing so, disrupt the workings of the institutions in which they are enmeshed. With drama surrounding these racial tipping points, combined with the disorder that results, new issues are propelled to the center of political debate, and they drive reform as panicked political leaders try to restore order. Protest movements gain real leverage by causing commotion among bureaucrats, excitement in the media, dismay among influential segments of the community, and strain for political leaders. My vision for Legacy of 64 is to introduce a new narrative that sheds a different light on riots and rebellions, one that also reveals the true legacy of Rochester's post-riot collaborations. This new narrative places Rochester at the helm of charting an unprecedented course of economic development for eradicating poverty that not only permeated its own community, but went on to touch lives in communities both nationally and globally. If this is true, then why, some 52 years later, are we faced with the grim reality that Rochester has plummeted to the 5th highest rate of child poverty in the country, a failing inner-city education system, and a growing divide across culture? All of this while situated in some of the wealthiest communities of our country. I believe that the root of this problem can be found in an ancient African proverb: a people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. If you don't know, don't track, or fail to learn from your history, then it is easy to lose the best parts of it. We have not been tracking and chronicling the history and legacy of post-riot collaborations. The history of ordinary people is like that. People were waking up every day doing what they felt was the right thing to do. Now the merits of their outcomes are largely unknown and lost. The lessons we can learn from their efforts are also lost. I believe that if we access this knowledge, history, and legacy, we might have a greater chance of overcoming the battles of racism and poverty. Initially, I approached this project as a researcher. I was curious to learn more about the activities and accomplishments of very respected individuals in our community. Many of them were aging. I also knew we had collected some of the history about them, but I was also afraid we would lose their legacy. I have come to understand the difference between history and legacy. History will give you facts about who, what, when, where, and maybe why, but legacy will reveal how we are connected and the ripple effect of how these connections affect our lives. After just a couple of oral interviews, my motivation for this project went way beyond a curiosity. I wanted others to understand what they taught me and how their legacy continues to teach me. Collectively, their stories revealed how well their collaborative work transformed systems and practices that had created the worst of human conditions. It revealed how the true legacy of 64 demonstrated pioneering ways in which diverse cultures could intersect and interact long enough to be developed, practiced, and preserved as a gift for generations to come. My research revealed that there were 17 of what I call pillars of hope that emerged from hundreds, if not thousands, of collaborations across races during that time. The outcomes of many lasted for years, and some until this very day. These pillars of hope are the foundational structures that create our modern-day human existence. Back then, people got together to reform the structural forces of housing, religion, health and well-being, education, leadership, and safety, to name just a few. I hope to reveal the significant collaboration activities and outcomes eventually for all 17. It takes time. The story in its entirety reveals that while social change is a slow process, it requires creating movements in each of these areas, cultivating leadership, organizing and leveraging the power of people who have lost or have never had a voice. Mahatma Gandhi said that poverty is the worst form of violence. It was on January 8, 1964, that President Lyndon B. Johnson, in his State of the Union address, declared unconditional war on poverty.
Our aim is not only to relieve the symptom of poverty, but to cure it, and above all, to prevent it. And I urge this Congress and all Americans to join with me in that effort. The richest nation on earth can afford to win it. We cannot afford to lose it. Poverty is a national problem, requiring improved national organization and support. For the war against poverty will not be won here in Washington. It must be won in the field, in every private home, in every public office, from the courthouse to the White House, to help more Americans, especially young Americans, escape from squalor and misery and unemployment roles where other citizens help to carry them.
Gunnar Myrdal wrote in 1961 that work was the basis for self-respect and a dignified life. Nixon saw the lack of the right to earn as the major problem affecting Black Americans. During his 1968 campaign, he often suggested that pride, ownership, private enterprise, capital, self-assurance, and self-respect are at the heart of American success, and that Black Americans are asking to be included in, not as supplicants, but as owners and entrepreneurs, to have a share of the wealth and a piece of the action. There were hundreds, perhaps thousands, of people who came together to build up Rochester's Pillars of Hope. The Ripple Hall of Fame inauguration will focus on those who gave their attention on building up the first pillar of hope, creating jobs. There are 10 individuals who stand out. One thing they all have in common is the creation, development, and sustainability of Fight On, later to become known as Eltrex Industries.
After the riots of July '64, there was a tremendous collaboration that took place among community active organizations, principally the Fight organization, the private sector, which was principally the Xerox Corporation, and actually the federal government as well, which was, in our case, principally the Labor Department. The Labor Department provided funding for training of the individuals to make them more job ready. Xerox Corporation provided trainers and also provided purchase orders for the company, Fight On, that was formed. And the Fight organization actually selected the individuals to be trained and become ultimately the employees. I came to Rochester in 1976. I was recruited by the board of the Fight On organization to come and serve as the CEO of the corporation. I was very excited about coming to Rochester because I had actually read about Fight On. I'd actually had studied a case study at the Harper Business School about the company and knew a lot about what the company stood for. So upon my arrival, as I discovered that just about all of our business came from Xerox Corporation, and it was necessary for us to expand, one of the early things that I did was to go and meet actually with Walt Fallon, the CEO of Kodak. Indicated to them that they were a big company in town. We were the largest minority-owned company in town, and we should be doing business together. And an actual collaboration started there with Kodak as well. But the real job that was done to get this company going was the work that Horace Becker did when he took the torch from Joe Wilson and helped form the Fight On organization and selected the kinds of products that Fight On could build that Xerox actually needed. And I'm so proud of the way the people that we hired performed in building those products. We often won the annual awards as the best supplier in the United States among these companies that we were supplying products for. Xerox, Kodak, Harris, what have you. So I'm really pleased that on top of providing thousands of jobs to individuals who, many of which would not have had an opportunity to work, got the opportunity and answered the call and excelled in what they did. We diversified the company. We had a number of companies under the umbrella of the Fight On. I eventually changed the name to Eltrex, primarily because as I started to expand and call on other companies, particularly outside of the area, they seemed to have quite a bit of difficulty with the name Fight On. They wanted to know fight who, what does this mean, and whatever, as opposed to what product or service we provided. So I changed the name to Eltrex. That was not easy, and I did it with a lot of consternation because, as I said, it was a nationally known name, something that was well respected in the community. But in order for us to move on and to talk about what it is that our company could do for these customers, we needed to change to Eltrex Industries, which is what we did. The diversification that we did is tremendous, and it's a model that I think it may be worth repeating. We started several companies, subsidiaries of Eltrex. We had a furniture manufacturing company, we had a distribution company, we had an offset printing company, a mail company. Of course, we had our core electromechanical assembly contract manufacturing company, we had an office supply company. We were a highly diversified company that could provide almost any service to a company that they might need in the area or in the country.
What people don't realize is that through this one single collaboration, thousands of jobs got created, not only in the Rochester community, but across the nation and internationally.
I have an awful lot of respect for Joe Wilson, his vision, his courage, his collaboration with Minister Florence in trying to do something to improve our community. And the thing that he did that's more relevant to me, of course, was to get Fight On started, which eventually caused thousands of individuals to have careers in this community so that they could raise their families, send kids to college or what have you. Joe Wilson was a rare individual, and we still are benefiting today from the vision that he had for this community and the concern that he had for the Rochester community.
Joe just believed, and he talked a lot of other people into believing.
It took a village of collaborations across platforms, talents, and resources.
Connie and John Mitchell were responsible for lots of jobs in this community. John at General Motors and Connie for Rochester Jobs. She was also responsible for helping create the Urban League, ABC, along with Dr. Walter Cooper. These are individuals who've made tremendous contributions to this community, and I have lots of respect for them. We all know that Ray Scott was president of the Fight Organization, but also he was a lot more than that. He was a talent scout for this community. He sought out individuals and helped them get into leadership roles that help improve this community tremendously. He's an individual that's highly principled, someone who I have interacted with over the years. He's been very, very helpful for me, and I'm always pleased to spend time with Raymond Scott.
My favorite connection in the development of job creation was the intersection of the faith-based community and leadership development. It was Mrs. Harper Sibley who advocated for empowerment and leadership in the Black community, which set the stage and the foundation for the organization work of Saul Alinsky.
I would not have done what I did, I think, if it was not for meeting Saul and going through that experience. Nothing, I think, ever impacted my life as much as that.
We are here tonight to celebrate the rich legacies that our inductees collectively bestowed upon our community. Perhaps this can serve as inspiration for us to create new ripples for job creation. Let their legacy be our guide and model for charting new solutions for generations to come.